Hey guys, Metal Jesus here. Now recently Kelsey posted on Twitter that you could go into her Pink Gorilla store and buy the ultimate GameCube setup. Now I love this idea so much that I actually reached out to her and I was like, do you mind if I do a video on this? Because I think I can step it up a notch a little bit. However, be warned, some of this stuff is kind of expensive. Let's take a look. Alright, well I want to start with a regular GameCube here. This is the indigo color, very common in North America. But you want to get model number DOL001 because that is the one that has the digital AV out. That's very important for getting the best video quality. Now I'm going to go into more detail about that in a second, but just be aware there are two different models. The next thing I want to add is the Game Boy player. This player is amazing. It allows you to play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance games on your GameCube. So it opens up a huge library and it basically just fits right on the bottom. However, the caveat to buying one of these is that you need to make sure it comes with this little disc. It cannot run without this software, which is a huge bummer because you often see the Game Boy players that attach underneath, but the software is missing. So just be aware, you're gonna have to have it. Next up, controllers. Now the GameCube supports 4 wired controllers, and I'm a big fan of the stock GameCube controllers. However, why not upgrade to the amazing Nintendo branded Wavebird wireless controllers? These wireless controllers really set the standard at the time, and they still work amazingly well. Now, a couple things to note here is that besides just having the controller, you must also have the receiver that plugs into the front of your GameCube, and you can stack those up if you want to use more of them. As a matter of fact, you can actually use 16 controllers within the same area. It's kind of amazing. Also, it takes 2 batteries that plug into the back. Thankfully, it's not that heavy. And then there's an off and on switch as well. Now let's talk about upgrading the video. I mentioned previously that you want a GameCube that has that digital AV out port, and the reason for that is because Nintendo at the time manufactured very expensive component cables. Well, thankfully now there are a bunch of little companies that are taking that port and converting it over to HDMI, like you see here. This is the Eon GCHD plug. And the way that this works is that it plugs into the back and it's actually using the analog port for better support. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, that there are other products out there previously that may have damaged GameCubes in the past, something I know a little bit about. So I think I'm gonna have to test this. So you'll notice here that I have the output going to my television, also my laptop to capture it just in case. And yeah, I'm yanking this thing around on that table and it's not even flickering in the slightest. It's very, very sturdy. So how do the games look going through the HDMI adapter? Well, picked out a handful of games here, including Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. And as you can see, it's bright, crisp, and very colorful. What can you say about this game other than, well, it's super fun and it looks fantastic. The next game I want to check out is a bullet hell shooter called Chaos Field. And I want to mention here in the beginning that a lot of GameCube games support progressive mode. And the way you do that is holding down the B button when you launch the game. And then it switches over to progressive, which is really nice. Now, I want to mention though that sometimes people get confused and think that progressive mode is widescreen, and it's not. Widescreen is its own thing, and some games do support it, but you have to go into the options of the individual game to enable that, again, if it supports it. The next game I want to check out is Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. This is a really fun first-person shooter, and one you don't really see all the time. I'm trying to pick games that are, you know, a little bit different, not the typical Mario Kart stuff that everybody shows all the time. And frankly, it's just an excuse to play this game again and capture the gameplay footage. And yes, the controls are really funky, but man, the visuals are so cool, so fun. And then here's a Star Wars game that I always forget about. That's Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike. This game is very similar to Rogue Squadron 2, which was a launch title for the GameCube and frankly, fantastic. This game still has great visuals. And, you know, for the most part, it's a really fun game, except for there are some on-foot sections that are not fun at all. But if you like Star Wars, you should definitely pick it up. So what about the Game Boy player? Well, the good news is it uses the same HDMI adapter as well, so all your classic games like Tetris are gonna get a bump in resolution, and they look better than ever. If you're familiar with Game Boy games, well, you know that they're in black and white, and the Game Boy player is adding color to them. So that's kind of a mixed bag. I think for the most part, it looks fine. You know, it's not like it detracts in any ways, but in other games, I think it actually enhances it. So here's Balloon Kid, and I think it adds color in a really nice way. It's here that I want to mention that there is a sought-after third-party controller designed specifically for playing these retro games on the Game Boy player. This is by Hori, and this is a fantastic third-party controller, obviously designed to be a mix of the GameCube controller and also the Super Nintendo controller, and it's really, really well designed, very comfortable. Of course, the Game Boy player supports Game Boy Advance games, so let's check out a few of them. Here is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. I consider this to be a bit of a hidden gem on the Game Boy Advance because while it's an isometric skateboarding game, you wouldn't think it would work very well, but it controls and plays so good. This is so much fun. I love it. And then who could forget about the original Advance Wars? Oh man, so many great memories are flooding back when I first got my Game Boy Advance. Bought a copy of this. I played it so many hours. It's such a great turn-based tactics game. I love the visual style too. I know. I think just doing this video is a great excuse to go back and play so many of these games that I just forgot about. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention the GameCube memory cards because, well, you're going to need them because you're going to want to save your game. The good news is these seem to store a lot of save games, so depending on the size of your library, you really only need one or two of them. Now here's something that people forget came out and it's actually kind of cool. This is the Game Boy Advance link cable, and this allows you to connect a Game Boy Advance to your GameCube and unlock extra stuff in games. As a matter of fact, it was supported by 56 games. So for instance, here you see me playing Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, and the moment that you connect the Game Boy Advance, it brings up an auto map. You can look up your objectives, things like that. Now, admittedly, for the most part, it's kind of gimmicky. It's not really necessary, but once you have the cable, it's kind of fun to dig into some of those games and just see what unlocks or what extra stuff you can do. And of course, you can't talk about the ultimate GameCube setup without at least mentioning the beautiful Panasonic Q. This is a fully licensed GameCube, but what makes it really interesting is that it has elements of a full-blown DVD player built into it as well. So it's not for everybody because it is region locked to Japan only. It's also incredibly expensive, but man, it sure is pretty. All right, well, that is my ultimate GameCube setup. Did I get it right? Did I miss anything? I'd love to know down in the comments below. Also, I'd like to know if you'd like to see this for other systems as well. Please let me know. Thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care. At the end here, I have to do a huge shout out to Cameron, who donated that Panasonic Q to my game room. He actually sent it to me complete in the box with its custom controllers and everything. And that's an amazing gift because those things go for $800 plus on eBay. They're incredibly collectible, so I was very, very grateful. Thank you so much, Cameron. All right, have a good day.